Hey guys, welcome back to yet another deck profile. Sorry I've been gone for a little bit. I know I took about a month hiatus because of exam periods for my master's program, but now that that's over with, I'll be able to produce more videos and hopefully better content with more deck profiles for you guys to all enjoy. Today I have a pretty interesting deck profile. I've been waiting for it for quite a while. I had to wait for some reprints, and I also had to wait for the Albaz Strike Structure deck. And I know you might shy away in the fact that it's branded, and if you don't like playing meta, you don't want to use the branded package, but trust me, in this case it's actually viable and kind of interesting in the deck. And that deck is actually Dragonmaids. Dragonmaids have quite an interesting history in the fact that they were released in Mystic Fighters, but were quite overshadowed, I believe, by the Eldritch release at that time. They were also overshadowed by other decks of the format because they were extremely slow. They were a turn 3 deck that couldn't usually make it to turn 3 in a turn 2 format. However, with Master Duels having been released, the deck came back into popularity, especially with new players due to the waifu tax and also Miss Kobayashi's Dragonmaid, the show. And who doesn't like their Dragon Maids and their Dragon waifus and, you know, the whole thing. Unfortunately, because of the old prints, like back in Mystic Fighters, it was very hard to actually get the cards because they were all short printed and they were extremely expensive at the time. However, in Maximum Gold, we had all the main deck Dragon Maids being reprinted except for Chamber Dragon Maid, which unfortunately then shot up to the price of about $90. And then we had to wait for the reprint of that in the next Maximum Gold, Eldorado, which was when we got the Chamber Dragon Maid. Thankfully now the whole deck core is relatively cheap. I believe the Dragon Maids are like $2 each in the gold rares, with the Chamber being like $11 or something like that. Overall, the deck's pretty cheap. It's very fun, to say the least, and the branded package gives you a lot more variety and able to do better end boards, I would say. It's kind of better. Instead of doing your Spheres Sheou pass, you now do Sheou Mirror Jade pass, and usually was set with Screams of the Branded in the back row, which kind of helps you. You can usually grind with your Sheou. Your Mirror Jade helps with keeping their board clear, and also if that's outed, it wipes their board. And then if your Mirror Jade's outed, you can Screams of the Branded it back and get another banish, which is a little bit better, I'd say, than the Spheres. You can still make Spheres in this deck, you just can't use Branded Fusion in the same turn that you would make Spheres. However, I really do like this deck. I've been a Dragonmaid fan for the longest time. I even made a deck box out of it through 3D printing that I designed myself. I have a Field Center from Amanda LaPalme, which was the House Dragonmaid and the Chamber Dragonmaid on each side. I've been a massive fan of them for a long time, just because I also like the art direction. I think it's really, I like a cutesy deck, to say the least. Well, I hope you guys will enjoy this deck profile, and let's get right into it. To start off with, we're going to get into our Dragonmaid lineup of cards, which is kind of pretty standard, except I do a weird tech choice, to say the least. So far, I run 3 Chambers, I run 3 Parlors, I run 2 Kitchen, but I actually run 2 Nurse. Some people say that you should run Nurse at 1, but in this variant of the deck, I find Nurse at 2 being extremely good in the grind situation, because if it's your top deck, it's an amazing normal summon as long as you have have like Dragon Maids in the graveyard. It's also great because we have a specific spell card in this deck that really helps us pop off and get our whole combo going, and usually you need a Nurse or a Dragon Extender in your hand, or Monster Reborn, in order to complete the full combo. In addition to the small Dragon Maids, which is 3 Chamber, 3 Parlor, 2 Kitchen, and 2 Nurse, I run 1 Earnest and 1 Lorpar. Lorpar is pretty good at this format. It's all right in the fact that it's basically a kind of like an effect veiler during your turn, in the sense that you can discard it and then target one face-up monster in the field, and they can't activate the card's effects for this turn. It can bait out like a Baron negate, which is fine because you want the Lorpar in the grave anyways to be able to do your Dragon Maid changes during the battle phase. It's also a good way just to have a good like fusion target, in the sense, because you need level 5 or higher dragon monsters to be able to make Sheou through the fusion. So that's our Dragonmaid monster lineup. It's pretty standard except for the Nurse. If you really wanted to, if you wanted to add one more big dragon, you could actually swap out maybe Well, I wouldn't swap it out. I would probably add maybe a Tinkek if you want to be able to beat over certain monsters, because I believe it gives up 2800 or 2500, and if you add that to this, it's like a 4500 beater that you can crash into their monsters. It's pretty good, I'd say. To get onto our Albaz lineup, we're going to be running 2 Fallen of Albaz, which is pretty standard. 3 is a brick. You don't really want to see it in your opening hand. However, in this deck, it's actually quite interesting because you can use Dragonmaid changeover to actually hard fuse with the Fallen of Albaz, which is quite nice. We're going to be running 1 Spriggan's kit. This is important for a specific line. It's good. It's basically the cheap man's Aluber, but it also is quite useful in the sense that you can search it out with a specific card I'll tell you later on. I'm going to hold this surprise. And then I'm also running 2 Albions. Albion is actually extremely good with Dragonmaids in the fact that since it is a 8-star dragon, you can actually use it for fusion fodder for your Sheou or for like your House Dragonmaid. Or if, let's say you get your chamber into rotation, then you can basically use Branded Fusion to dump the Albion and the Albaz. And then since Albion's in the graveyard, you can activate its effect shuffling itself back into the deck to dump a Screams of the Branded, which will reset itself to the field and give you like follow-up in the next turn. So that's our Albaz lineup of monsters. It's very small, but of course you're going to run a small package anyways. Most people, I think, in Branded Despia run 1 or 2 Fallen of Albaz. They don't run the Albions, and I don't think they run the Spriggan's kit, but we need to run all these because they're quite good with Dragonmaids, to say the least. So, we only have room for a hand trap, like 1 hand trap lineup, which in my opinion is 3 Ghost Ogre. I like Ghost Ogre in this format because it stops the Adventurer package as best as it can. It can stop the Fateful from Adventure from going off, which is pretty nice. You could swap this out with Effect Veiler. The only reason that you have to run Ghost Ogre or Effect Veiler is because you need a light target in the deck to be able to use your Branded Fusion if you want to go into, like, let's say a Albion. Or not an Albion, I think it is, right? 1 second. I just want to check that. It's the red one. Yeah, Albion the Branded Dragon. I forgot that there was 2 versions of Albion. But you need to run a light target in order to be able to go into your Albion the Branded Dragon, which is the fusion, off of Branded Fusion. So we run the Ghost Ogre instead. I was trying it out with Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is alright. Ghost Ogre is a little bit better in my opinion because you can also use it during your turn. If they try to use something like a continuous spell or trap, which I've had happen to me against like a Dark Magician and whatnot. But it's pretty good overall, I'd say. So it covers our whole entire monster lineup. After that, we're going to get into the spells and traps. So for our spells, we're going to be running 2 Dragonmaid Changeover, and we're going to be running 3 Dragonmaid Tidying. The Dragonmaid Changeover I run at 2 because of the fact that if it gets hit with a DD Crow, for example, then you won't be able to use it anymore. And if you want to have 2, because it's also a good top deck if you need to use it for actually fusion targets, and then you run 3 Hospitality in order to extend further within your combos and to keep on grinding through the game. Out of that, we're going to be running into our Branded package. We're going to be running triple Branded Fusion, which is quite standard, of course. It helps you get into your combo lines and also quite good and powerful in this deck. But this is actually the tech card that I wanted to show you. It was Branded in High Spirits. People sleep on this card for the fact that you're able to use it to show any Dragonmaid, and then you can actually dump an Albion from your extra deck and search out Spriggan's kit. It's one of the few decks that can make use of Branded in High Spirits because you can just reveal a dragon and then be able to dump a dragon. And it can get your chambers into rotation if you have Branded in High Spirits and you show chamber. You can dump that to the grave, and like let's say you have an extender like Dragonmaid Nurse, like Nurse Dragonmaid, then you basically have full combo in the sense that you can get Kit and you can get Nurse Dragonmaid and you already have chamber in rotation in the graveyard, which is quite powerful. That is our Branded spell lineup. Next we're going to be running some generic stuff. We're going to be running 2 World Legacy Guard Dragon. This is quite good in the deck because of course we're running all dragons in the deck besides the Ghost Ogre and the Kit. It's also quite useful if you were to go into an actual Link line because you can't get into your Branded Fusions, and it can get your LP online. Other than that, we're going to be also running triple Super Poly. Super Poly is alright in this format. Basically, on draw phase, you can declare I'm going to activate Super Poly and then fuse off their DPE before they can do anything to try to get rid of their board, as long as they don't leave, if they leave 2 darks on the field. We have some other Super Poly targets in the extra deck I'll show you afterwards, but I think Super Poly is pretty good in this format. I like it. It actually destroys Branded Despia because of the fact that they mostly have all dark monsters. It's quite good. That is our whole entire spell lineup now. We're going to actually move on to the traps. It's quite simple. We're going to be running 3 Tidyings. Tidying being a monster reborn when it's in the graveyard, and also a seals on the as a trap. Quite good. Stinks you can only use 1 of the effects per turn, but it's also really useful in the fact that when you have your Sheou going off, you can keep on adding your chamber back, and then once you add your chamber back, or like you summon your chamber, you can add Tidying. And like, let's say you have Spheres on the field. What you can do is you can activate Spheres, tribute itself, bounce 1 of their monsters, go into Albaz, discard Tidying, fuse off another one of their monsters, and then you have Tidying in the graveyard to monster reborn any of your Dragonmaids, which is quite good. And the last trap we're going to be running is actually Screams of the Branded. Screams of the Branded is it's an interesting choice in this deck, in my opinion. I know I say that about a lot of things, but the reason that we run a single Screams is because of Albion. Albion is quite accessible in the deck as long as you have your chamber in rotation, because then you can use your Branded Fusion to dump Albion because you wouldn't have any other good targets for the Lubellion. And then you can activate the Albion in the graveyard, shuffling it back into the deck to dump Screams of the Branded. And then Screams of the Branded says, if a fusion monster is sent to your graveyard this turn, special summon 1 of your fusion monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there to activate the effect of Fallen of Albaz this turn, you can set this card, and you can only activate this effect of Screams of the Branded once per turn. It's really good because of the fact that Albion actually treats itself as Albaz when it's in the graveyard. So when you shuffle it into the deck, you are able to dump Screams of the Branded, and it resets itself on the end phase. And it also leaves you Albion in the deck so that you actually have Dragon Fusion fodder so you can make more Sheous. So that is actually the deck profile for the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck now. So, for the extra deck, we're going to be running a standard Dragonmaid package. We're going to be running 2 Sheou and 2 House. You can bump up the ratio of House because you sometimes may kind of brick on it in a sense. I know I'm not saying it right, but basically if you summon a House and your house gets destroyed, and you, like, let's say you have Sheou, but you have no houses left in the graveyard, you can't activate Xiao's Omni Negate to swap itself out for House because you don't have a legal target. So that's why some people run 3 House and 2 Sheou, to make sure that you actually have the legal target constantly. I still like the 2 and 2 because I feel like you don't get to the point where you have to use all of them, but that's my opinion. We're going to be running a small link package, which is going to be double Seals and a Pisty, which is what they used to run. It's what the basic Dragonmaid combo would end with. It would just be Sheou, Spheres Pass. You only do that if you're basically getting into your normal Dragonmaid combos without any of the branded stuff being involved. It's still pretty powerful. It's nice to have Albaz in the main deck now because you're able to Super Poly on their turn, so you have 3 points of interruption where you would have Sheou, Omni Negate, Spheres, Bounce, and you would have the Albaz Poly, which is kind of nice. And then because of the Albaz now, if we have, like, we can go into Mirror Jade and be able to have a fourth point of interruption during their turn. Other than that, we're going to be running a Super Poly package, which is going to be a Mud Dragon of the Swamp. We're going to run a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and funny tech choice, Mysterion the Dragon Crown. I've had Mysterion come up. It's really nice to be able to out like a Dragoon, for example, because what you can do is you can Super Poly Dragoon plus an Albaz if you normal summon it or something like that, or you can use your Albaz to actually fuse away that. Other than that, I just have it's just a target for Dragoon if I can't get all the Starving Venom fusion. But yeah, it's pretty good. Then we're going to be running into the branded package, which is I'm going to run 1 Titaniclad, 2 Albions, 1 Lubellion, and 1 Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is... I would like to run 2. I just don't really think I have much space for it. I could probably cut 1 Spheres for it to have a second Mirror Jade, but I never see myself ever going into a second one. I usually think 1 is more than enough. We run the 2 Albions because of the Branded and High Spirits, and we can use that to dump the Albion, and the Albion can search a Branded Fusion during the end phase, or search the Screams and set it, or whatever of the branded spells. If you want to add more branded spells or traps, you can, because we have the ability to do it with Albion, but besides that, that's our whole entire setup. So yeah, that's the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let's see if we can do some combos right now. I'm going to start off most likely... Let me just shuffle this deck first. I'm going to give you some test hands, for example. The deck is unfortunately kind of weak to hand traps. It loses when you have to deal with multiple points of interaction. It's a going first deck, and usually can play through 1 or 2 hand traps, but besides that, if you keep getting hit with like drolls and like turn ending like hand traps, unfortunately deck flounders a little bit. But most decks do in this format, unfortunately, because most decks have 1-card starters that will get them into an unbreakable board, and is kind of a joke, to say the least. Alrighty, so I shuffled this. Let's see what we can get. So we have an Albion, a Kitchen, Branded High Spirits, another Branded High Spirits, and a World Legacy Guard Dragon. That is actually full combo right now. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to activate Branded High Spirits. We're going to reveal the Kitchen. Kitchen's going to dump itself. We're going to dump the Albion from our extra. Then we're going to search out Spriggan's Kit. After adding Spriggan's Kit, we're going to special summon it. Spriggan's Kit, its effect is going to activate. We're going to add ourselves a Branded Fusion. And then we're going to have to put something on the bottom of the deck. In this case, we're going to have to do Branded and High Spirits because we already used it. What we can do now is activate Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion is going to allow us to dump Fallen of Albaz and to dump Chamber. This is why it's really good, because it gets Chamber into rotation. And then we're going to be able to fuse ourselves into a Lubellion. Now we're going to activate Lubellion's effect. We're going to discard the Albion. We're going to shuffle the Fallen of Albaz, and we're going to shuffle the Albion into the deck in order to summon out a Mirror Jade. Now you might be asking, why did we not shuffle the Lubellion? And that's because we actually now have a legal dragon target to be able to go into Sheou. So if you see, we have 1 card in hand. Unfortunately, this if we go this combo line, you basically neg your whole hand. But besides that, it's pretty good, as long as you don't get interrupted. What we could do right now is we can just activate Albion to get it out of the way, bait something. We're going to shuffle Albion back into the deck. We're going to dump our, where is it? Screams of the Branded. Then what we're going to do is we're going to activate World Legacy Guard Dragon. We're going to special summon out the Chamber Dragonmaid. Chamber Dragonmaid's effect is going to go off, getting ourselves a Dragonmaid changeover. And then what we can do is activate Dragonmaid changeover, fusing the Chamber Dragonmaid and the Lubellion to go into our Sheou. And then we can proceed to end phase. And on end phase, we're going to be able to set Screams of the Branded back face down. So this is our end board. It doesn't look like much. I know it looks a little bit weak, let's say. But during your opponent's phase, so like we go into their standby phase, we're going to be able to activate Sheou. We're going to Monster Reborn our Chamber. Chamber's effect is going to go off yet again. We're going to be able to, in this time, it depends on what we really want to do. We can add Dragonmaid Tidying to our hand, because what we can think of doing now is if we like let's say we go into their turn and they start doing some stuff, what we can actually do is if they out the Mirror Jade, like let's say they kaiju it, you can bring it back with Screams. Or on their normal summon, you activate Mirror Jade, and we're going to dump for, say, a Titaniclad. That's what the Titaniclad's for, just to as a dump target. It really doesn't matter. We can dump the Titaniclad, and then we can banish one of their monsters. Then they out the Mirror Jade. The Mirror Jade is going to go off the field. It'll destroy everything during the end phase, because it activates when it hits the graveyard. Then what we can do is we can activate Screams of the Branded, and then be able to activate that to bring back the Mirror Jade, and then we get another banish. So that's basically 2 points of interaction. Then we also have the Dragonmaid Sheou. Sheou is an Omni Negate, so we basically have the ability to have an Omni Negate. If they out the Sheou, we can bring it back with Screams also, and it brings out House. Now during end phase, after everything's wiped, or like let's say that they somehow prevent that from going off and you don't get the wipe, well, we still have the Titaniclad to go off during end phase. What we can do is we can activate the Titaniclad, summoning out the Fallen of Albaz. It's kind of off screen. We summon out the Fallen of Albaz. What we do have now is we have an actual discard target. So what we can do is discard the Tidying and fuse off, like let's say that they have like a Dragoon that they use their Omni Negate on to stop the Mirror Jade. We activate Fallen of Albaz, fusing itself and their Dragoon, and like let's say that's off the field. Then we can go into Mysterion. And we already have a Tidying in the graveyard now, so if anything happens to any of our monsters, like the Dragonmaids, we can just bring them back the next turn and just continue to plus. The deck's really good at grinding. It has crazy follow-up as long as it can survive a turn. Usually 2 points of interaction is more than enough. Unfortunately, like going first, it's pretty good. Going second, the deck struggles a little bit. You have the Super Polys to help even that out in the sense that you can usually Super Poly boards away, and you can also just try to get rid of their things by using your normal branded lines and being able to go into the Mirror Jade. But I would always prefer to go first in this deck. So that's just an example of a combo with a test hand. I hope you guys all enjoyed this deck profile and test hands, and I hope you guys have a great day. See you next time.